Dang it. Alright everyone, welcome again to Murphy's Law Garage and part 3 of explaining how the Bronco was built before there was YouTube. And last time I left y'all on a cliffhanger, and that is a very pretty cleaned up and resealed 7.3 staring at the engine bay of a 1989 Bronco. So let's keep going. Alright, so not the best of pictures, but you can see here that the 7.3 is angled up and stuck into the hole here. Let's go forward one more. Okay, so we attempted to stick the motor in the hole like this, and it ran into everything. And this had us very, very concerned whenever we first started sticking it. And if you look here, it was obviously making hard contact with the firewall right here. The paint's starting to scratch up. A lot of what you're seeing right here is me actually hammering on the firewall to bend this lip back right here and try to push this part of the firewall back in. This is just below the cowl. In fact, right here you can see the very bottom of the trans tunnel. But this is where the turbo was making contact with the back of the underneath of the cowl. Alright, so you can see here what I've done is that this right here, this flange, actually once continued all the way down this way. And I've cut into it here and here, and I've begun, as you can see here, hammering it backwards so that it would get up out of the way. The transmission was running into this. See David and his sexy legs laying up underneath here. The transfer case is laying bolted up into the back of the truck here, waiting to receive the transmission. Oh, and also here you can see that flange has been completely bent backwards, not even visible anymore. Alright, so this was super exciting. So you can see here I got tired of damaging our pretty paint, so I taped it up. The motor is very, very, very nearly in the hole, but if you look right here, you can see the front of the oil pan and you can see the K-member. The oil pan actually needs to be way back here to be behind the K-member. So it needs to go backwards, solid 8-10 inches, and it is just, it's not there. It's sitting up. It's hard against the body here, and it's hard against the K-member here. Here's another shot of it. We actually took the weight off of it. It's sitting on a block on the K-member. So what that meant was the body had to come off. Now, the guys with the newer 6.0 trucks are looking at it going, oh, well, we all have to do that. Well, it was not our intent to have to pull a body off, but as it seemed to be with every single thing we did with this truck, we just went deeper and deeper into the restoration process. So you can see here that we've even begun cleaning the frame up and doing more painting here. The body was extremely haphazardly. I mean, this is up on the ceiling very well, but we literally ratcheted the body straight up to the ceiling. Coming back down was the scary bit, but we'll get back to that. You can see we've actually taken the motor and sat it into the hole here, and the engine mounts are actually sitting on the K-member so that I can get an idea of where the engine mounts are. You can see the ovate pancake downpipe coming down right here, and the transmission actually isn't quite connected to the T-case yet, sitting right here. David looking on in envy over here. You can see that here's our fuel tank. Got a bunch of the harness just laying loose, and you can see better how we've got the rear of the truck strapped up over here. Motor looking mighty fine in there. Alright, so here's an extremely common question that comes to me, and in fact it points out that I was wrong about something I remembered. This is the K-member you're looking at right here. Here's the oil pan of the motor. Here's the coil tower. The frame is right here. This is the lower half of the engine mount. Now the engine mount for these trucks is in two pieces, and this is the lower piece. The rest of it is actually hanging off over here, and you can see there's a through bolt that bolts right here, and the rubber is actually inside of this right here. Now, these ended up being brand new mounts that we used right here, because this is what I ended up doing. This part of the K-member right here is like kryptonite, and I did not want to destroy expensive drill bits trying to drill through it. So this part of the engine mount was attached to the engine. We brought the engine down to the K-member here. We got it all lined up where it needed to be. And when we sat it on, these two bolt holes lined up on this side, and it's actually the other side of the K-member. Let's see if it's here. Oh wow, this is a wildly upside down picture, but this is the other side. So this is the passenger side, this is the driver's side, and only one bolt lined up on this one, and it's this bolt right here. And it's supposed to have a bolt here, a bolt here, and a bolt here. And this one, bolt here, bolt here. So what I did instead, you can actually see my welds here, is I put those two bolts in while the motor was still sitting down by the K-member. And then once it was all cinched down real tight, I took these bolts out, releasing the motor from it, and then came back and stitch welded the this half of the engine mount down all the way. Now this portion of the engine mount that has the rubber built into it is replaceable, so it's not a problem that it was welded in on this side. You can actually see the welding here along this one as well. Now this is with the motor bolted back into the K-member, and you can see just how close the bottom of the oil pan is to the inside of the K-member, but the clearance is absolutely perfect, as if it were meant to be there. And then here's your shot from the top of the K-member up to the bottom of the pan, like I said, as if it was meant to be there. Alright, now here you have a backed up shot showing the motor sitting between the strut towers. You've got plenty of room everywhere where that motor could ever need room. Alright, you'll see in this jump shot here, I believe we had to replace this fuel tank. It had some rot on the bottom of it, so this is a new tank that David's gone ahead and painted black. See the straps and everything are painted black. You can see the transfer case is now attached to the transmission. That rear drive shaft is in here, and if you look very closely, let's see if we can get in a little closer. If you look closely here, you can actually see that the drive shaft is not stabbed all the way in here. You can see the blue grease and the spline sticking out. So this was a no-go, though we tried, and you'll see that as a mistake later on. Alright, so what you have here, let me look at this a little closer. This is a Crossmember. See the rear end right here? This is a Crossmember linking the two halves of the frame together that's riveted. Over time, these rivets will tend to loosen up a little bit and make some flexibility in the frame, and we wanted to stiffen the frame up to deal with all that power we were about to put through it. So you can see I've gone here and I've fully welded this Crossmember into the frame, as well as welded it here. It's welded down here and across as well, so the frame is fully welded to add more strength. Same thing here as well. You can see that this is fully welded here, this is fully welded here, and this is actually the Crossmember that holds the transmission in. Now this was a choice. So remember I talked about how this frame is hard like kryptonite, and I later found out that this portion of it right here, or maybe it was this bit here, was not remotely as hard as what we had to deal with on the frame rail itself when we were doing the lift kit. And I probably could have just drilled this out and bolted this transmission Crossmember in, but the transmission is quite literally welded in with its Crossmember. And you might think, well, that's kind of insane, how would you ever get it out? Well, one of two things. With the body lift, if you see how the transmission ends right here, and look, see the transmission mount and everything is right here, it is possible to pick this transmission up enough to get it over the mount, back it up, and then send the nose down to slip it out from underneath of the truck. Barring that being an impossibility for some reason, It would also be possible for me to cut the crossmember here and here and then put in a properly bolted setup, and then it would just leave this section of the crossmember behind. And I decided that that was a better route to go at the time, and I'm still sticking with that decision. You can see here a better shot of the splines not seated all the way into here. Now initially we thought the reason why this was left this way is when we put the weight of the body back on, this would tuck in more, but of course it never really did. Alright, right here we appear to be looking at the front drive shaft. Yeah. Excuse me. Here's your front drive shaft running up to the front. That all looks fine. I'm displaying the welding here that I did to tuck these two into each other. The welder I had was a little too small, so the penetration is not amazing, but there is weld on the front and the back, and down here where you can't see it. You can see here that the frame has not been fully painted yet. In fact, it's just scratched up and clean, and we've got some old nasty harness still hanging out right here. Right here is before we decided to put the Sterling 10 1/4 in the back. This is the old Ford 8.8, and we decided to get in here, clean it out, and redo all of the bearings and the seals and all that fun stuff. Here it is with everything rebuilt and then stuffed back into the pumpkin, and it's all put back together again and painted real pretty. This ended up being sold off to some nice fellow that used it in a rat rod. Okay, so here's where we start playing with the fuel system. Here we have from Napa. This is a Napa unit here. So here's the holder. It's an aluminum pot metal type holder right here, and we've got a fuel water separator. You can see we've got some lock on, push on, lock on fuel fittings here. Some extremely high quality Gates silicone hose, and this runs up, I believe it runs up this side over here to bring fuel, and then this side runs up under here to go back around here to feed fuel. In fact, look, you can see the hose is not connected yet. It runs up this side, and it kind of made a ram's horn right here when I brought them in. This is actually a return line, return coming back. Let's see, what were we doing in this picture? Oh, okay, so yeah, right here I'm showing you the fuel delivery. Here's the return and the positive diesel pressure line coming in, the suction line, I mean, coming up in right here. You can see that the power steering line has been attached, and we even have a fan belt on the motor. Oh, here you can see my fuel setup where the two were coming up into the center here. Alright, so this is where I start digging a little bit more into the wiring. This right here specifically is the engine harness, and you can see here this is a section of it that I replaced. This is the brand new bit that goes into the valve cover for the injector drivers and the glow plugs, and it's all real pretty and heat shrinked, soldered back together. And this is what was here previously. Look at all that distress in it from the overheating. This is the F-250's dash control harness that David was out in the freezing rain. You can see the electric pedal assembly here in the freezing rain pulling out for us. Here's the fuse panel. Here's David out in the freezing rain. Here's what's left of the inside of the truck once he pulled all the dash out and pulled the harness. Right here you can see that I'm still playing with the engine harness here. We've got the glow plug relay chilling up right here. And what I've done here is you can see this is one that somebody else replaced, and we've got these butt splices. Don't do this, it's horrible. And you can see here where I've replaced this one, I've actually taken the proper foiling and put the foiling and a grounding wire back in to protect the rest of the harness from EMF. And here I actually brought this home. This is the harness after being completely rebuilt. It's reloomed, retaped. All of the brand new connections are put on it. Alright, so what you see here is the entire body control. See the injector driver module right here? You can see a very ghetto-ly got a pair of batteries, a bunch of jumper cables sitting around. Got some grounds being made with jumper cables. We got the fuse box from the F-250. You can see that brand new redone engine harness laying up here, as well as I've got my meter here. Obviously I was poking around testing things. Here's the Bronco shift bracket that we were trying to mock up and see how we were going to make that work to shift the truck from, drive, park, reverse.
Alright, Papa, I think it's going to go this time.
So what you're seeing here is the 7.3 starting for the very first time. This is super exciting, and in fact, right before I pulled the camera out to shoot this video, we bumped the key to make sure that the truck would even try to turn over, and apparently there was just enough fuel inside the injectors that it popped at us, and we weren't expecting it because it made one revolution and tried to start, and then died. And I checked everything out, made sure it was all okay. Since it turned over, everything was still connected, and then we fired this video up. So I'm going to mute myself so you can hear this video a little better, and go ahead and watch it.
You want to try again?
And I'm going to stop this for a second. Could you not see the genuine fear in David's face when this truck that motor did not want to start? We had no idea whether or not this motor was going to run, whether or not the guy had lied to us. And what's funny, as I can see here now, my dad, he put a 5-inch stack straight through the hood, and I still wish we'd have done that. I'm sorry. Let's get you back to the video.
Give it a little love. Come on.
Now tell me that isn't the look of sheer excitement, amazement in everything that is diesel-powered Bronco. Alright, back to your video.
I mean, you want to talk about how hard your willy is right now? I mean, just look at it, Papa. Just look at it. Anything you want to say?
She sounds good.
She sounds good, huh? Sounds angry.
Turbo whistling noises.
Turbo whistling noises, you heard?
I like it.
Look at all the ghetto riggedness JB had to do to make Uncle David this happy.
It says we got a bad battery.
I get it. Probably has to do with hooking 2 batteries to a single battery charger. Look at all this ghetto rigging JB had to do to make Uncle David this happy. It runs, Uncle David.
It runs. You a good dude.
Yep.
Alright, yeah, sure enough. Look at all the ghetto rigging JB
runs,
had
Uncle
to do
David.
to get that running. There was an absolute mess of everything laying all over the floor. Well, everyone, that's our time for this one. Thank you for coming to watch it. God bless. Thank y'all for being here. I hope y'all enjoying this series on explaining how the diesel Bronco was built before YouTube. All of our social media is linked down below, as well as a link to this photo album so that you can go see this yourself. Thanks, y'all.